What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Sports Muse podcast. We are breaking down the 2021 NFL draft. We are talking about the NFC East, a division that was probably below mediocre. Mediocre probably would have been a compliment for the division last year. Well, the good news is I think everybody did a very, very good job in the draft in the NFC East, and we are breaking it down today. We're going pick by pick. We're picking winners, losers, and do some analysis. Before we get to it, make sure you check out our sponsor, Raise Energy. You can see it above me. I'm a huge fan of Raise. They were nice enough to sponsor the show. If you use the promo code SportsMuse, you get 15% off your next purchase for the best tasting energy drink on the market, guaranteed. All right, so let's jump to it. So for my winner, man, it was really tough. It was honestly really hard for me to pick a winner or a loser. So far, I've done the entire AFC, and I thought this one was the toughest one. So I am going to say that the winner of the NFC East for the draft was the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I'll tell you why I think they're the winner, and I can tell you why I could argue that they might be the loser. So I think they potentially got the best receiver in this draft class, right? At the number 10 pick with DeVonta Smith. So when we look at DeVonta Smith, he is the greatest college receiver of all time. He had the greatest individual season for a college receiver of all time. I know that the weight concerns, I get that. But at the same time, as you're, putting him with a former college teammate, I think he's somebody who can do it all and do it all at a very, very high level. And I think he can produce early on because we know that Philly fans want to win and they want to win now. So I think DeVonta Smith was a great pick. And then almost just as good as they land Landon Dickerson. Understand that if Landon Dickerson didn't have an injury problem, he didn't just blow out his knee not too long ago, he probably would have been a 15 through 20 pick. And they get him with a 37th overall pick. So I think that is a huge, huge win for the Philadelphia Eagles. We look at it, they get some interior pass rush with Milton Williams from Louisiana Tech. Now, let me tell you why I think you could argue that they're the loser. Is because in the fourth round, they finally addressed corner. And we saw them, besides Darius Slay, get just manhandled in the passing game last year. So I think they definitely should have addressed their corner position before the fourth round. We look at their fifth round pick. They get the running back from Memphis, Kenneth Gainwell. Big fan of him. I think he's going to be a fantastic spell back to Miles Sanders. And if Miles Sanders would miss a week because of injury, which he's dealt with some injury problems, I think he's a guy who can, carry 10 to 15 times and be highly efficient. So I really like the Philadelphia Eagles draft. And that brings me to my loser. And again, understand that I don't think this team had a bad draft at all. I'm just saying they're the loser because of one particular reason. Okay, so my loser is the Washington professional football team. So they go out with the 19th pick and they get Jamin Davis, inside linebacker from Kentucky. I'm a big fan of Davis. He's a little raw, a little undersized, but I like those kind of guys. We see that those guys are coming more and more often into the league, and they're having high amounts of success because they don't have to come off the field on third down. They're almost sub package backers who can play downs 1, 2, and 3. So I'm a fan of him. He isn't probably ready to play day one, or if he is ready to play day one, he's probably not going to be highly efficient early on. He's going to have to get used to the speed of the NFL, getting off blocks. So that's to be seen. The reason I'm saying the Washington professional football team are losers is because they had the opportunity to trade up instead of the Bears trading up and get their guy. I understand they have Fitz magic, and right now maybe Fitzpatrick's better than Justin Fields this coming season. But when I look at it, they could have got their guy for the future. Fitzpatrick's probably going to play one more season, maybe two. I don't know. But they really could have landed their franchise guy. So long term, I think that's where they kind of maybe made a mistake. Maybe they didn't have a high grade on Justin Fields. Maybe they wouldn't get another Ohio State quarterback and have him bust. I understand that. I just think that's where maybe they could have potentially made a mistake. We look in the second round, they get Samuel Cosmi, a outside or offensive tackle from Texas. He's a really solid guy. We could have saw him go in round one, and that wouldn't have been a shock. They go in and get some cornerback help. They get a receiver in round 3 as well. I wish they would maybe with that first round pick got a receiver to kind of go opposite of McLaurin. Because I do think they're a playmaker short. We saw that Logan Thomas really stepped up, and we know that McLaurin's really been stepping up not only on the field but in the locker room. I just still think they're one playmaker short, and that defense is going to be even more ferocious now. That defense was just straight up crazy last year. But yeah, they do booster, that group. And if they can control the ball, maybe that pick works out. I would just like to see long term them maybe trade up and get Justin Fields. But again, I'm just picking them as a loser because I have to pick a loser in this division. So we jump to another team. We're going to talk about the Dallas Cowboys next. So we look with the first round pick, 12th overall, they get Micah Parsons from Penn State. So this pick makes me feel two ways. So when I originally heard it, I was like, oh man, I love Micah Parsons. I had him as my best defensive player in this year's draft. Then I thought about it. I'm like, well, they're already like stacked at linebacker with Jalen Smith and LVE. So I was a little bit perplexed. And then I read the story today that they did not sign the 5th-year extension for Leighton Vander Esch. So now, you're getting Micah Parsons to probably replace him. And, that kind of feels like a lateral move instead of stepping up. If you're drafting a guy to replace one of your best players on your team, period, and probably your best defensive player, that's just kind of tough, work out this season, hopefully, because I think he's a guy who can play immediately. But with that being said, I like the pick. I just wish that, they were really just trying to do something with the 3 linebackers and almost try to get some big body guys and almost old school 3-4 defense if you sort of think about it. But the one thing I love about the Cowboys is they really address their defense. That was their weakness, and they did not shy away from it in the draft. We see with the second round, they go Kelvin Joseph, cornerback from Kentucky, which is a guy who I thought was kind of flying under the radar. That's about the time we thought he'd be picked, but I think he's a guy who potentially, maybe should have got a little bit more love in the process, if you will. They go in and get a defensive tackle from UCLA who's kind of a hybrid inside guy, outside guy. And I think he's going to be almost like a mismatch guy. You can put him inside on a guard and kind of have him bully. You can put him on the outside. He can kind of speed around the tackles. So I think he's a really intriguing prospect who can cause a lot of problems. We see them go Chauncey Golston, defensive end from Iowa in the 3rd round. We see in the other 3rd round pick, they go, Nahshon Wright, cornerback from Oregon State. So that they pound the defense, and that was the appropriate thing to do. That's what I loved about the Cowboys draft. They didn't try to be cute. They didn't try to, because I was really perplexed when people were saying that they're going to trade up to get Kyle Pitts. Don't get me wrong, Kyle Pitts could be a once in a generation talent. I'm not denying that. But what I'm saying is you clearly have an entire side of the ball where you're just not good at. So that would have made no sense to give up capital for not only this year, but probably next year to get up to number 4 to get Kyle Pitts. So I think at the end of the day, they end up making the correct decision. The last team in the NFC East we're going to be talking about is the New York Giants, the G-Men. So they trade back, which is, the first time we've seen Gettleman do. And with the 20th overall pick, they end up taking Kadarius Toney. I am a big Kadarius Toney fan. I kind of think he's maybe a little twitchier, not quite as strong Deebo Samuel. And we've seen when Deebo Samuel's on the field of what a difference he makes for that San Francisco 49ers team. So I'd love the Kadarius Toney pick. Maybe a slight reach by 5 to 7 picks, but you're going to have that. If that's your guy, great. But they maybe even could have traded back again just slightly, but I think he'll pair well with Kenny Golladay. So I really like that pick. He's just a guy, get the ball, let him make his moves. With their second round pick is, I think, the most complete pass rusher in this year's draft. And that's Azeez outside line. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. Azeez outside linebacker from Georgia. I think he's a guy who has the athletic profile. I think he's a guy who has the moves. And I think he can do a lot of things very, very well. And I think he's really going to help that pass rush in New York immediately. We go to the 3rd round. They get Aaron Robinson, a guy who we saw run a 4.38 in the pro days. I guess there was no combine. He's a guy who, needs to work on his coverage skill a little bit, a little raw. But I think he has all the traits to be a great corner going into the future. We see in the 4th round, they get Elerson Smith, outside linebacker from Northern Iowa. He's a guy, if he develops, I think he can be very, very effective. I want to say he's 6'5", 6'6", around that 240, 250 mark. He's a big guy. He's strong, but he also brings speed. I think he's a plus athlete. So he's a guy where if he really starts to fine tune it, they could have got 2 really good pass rushers in this year's draft. And in the 6th round, they go on to booster up that depth chart behind Saquon Barkley since he's coming off the blown out knee. All in all, really, I think this is a positive step for the NFC East. We've seen them they were the whole division was just a train wreck last year. The year before that's still not fantastic. And, I think this is good. It's good for football. You don't want a division. We see that one team from every division has to make the playoffs. Last year was kind of almost embarrassing with the Washington professional football team making the playoffs. They end up playing the, Super Bowl champs, and they didn't get blown out, but it was still just the idea of like when you're having a team that's not great, from a record for the entire regular season, make the postseason. It's a little bit of a tough look. But, all in all, I think all four of these teams got better in some sense. Some of them maybe didn't address their needs as much as they should have. Philly probably could have went corner a little bit earlier. I think Washington could have gone playmaker a little bit earlier, but that's to be seen. These scouting departments know what they're doing. I'm just a guy. So we'll see how that plays out. Guys, if you like the episode, make sure you click like and subscribe, help support the show, and let me know what you think down in the comments. I'll see you guys next time.